Well, good evening and welcome to one of our alumni lectures. This week, we're very pleased to be joined by Rebecca Wilson, class of 2017, and also her podcast partner, Lizzie. They'll be going through sort of their journey, both in agriculture and also not into agriculture as well. I won't spoil what their presentation is, but just a few sort of housekeeping sort of points for you all. As you can see, we're in a webinar setting. So if you have any questions regarding the presentation, or also just some questions for them, please do put it in the Q&A box at the bottom, and we'll be answering the questions at the end of the presentation. Well, without further ado, I'll hand over very much to Becca and Lizzie, and this is Boots and Heels. So thank you very much for joining, and also a very warm welcome to those who are also watching on YouTube later as well. So thank you very much. Becca and Lizzie, over to you.
Wow, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're going to have to give us a minute just while we share our screen with our presentation. Fingers crossed this goes right.
We should know technology by now.
We should.
So there we are. Hopefully you can all see that. If not, well, put a little message or raise your hand. But as Lewis said, I am Becca and this is Lizzie, and we are Boots and Heels. So first, a quick thank you to Lewis and everyone at the RAU for inviting us on. It's quite surreal to be back, and be involved in something related to Siren. So yeah, thank you very much. As Lewis mentioned, we're going to be talking a bit about ourselves, how Boots and Heels started, and then some of the challenges that we've faced along the road. If our presentation works. So, as I mentioned, I'm Becca and I am the Boots of the duo. So I grew up on the family farm, and this photo I think is just quite a good indication. It's me and my twin sister. I mean, I've got quite an iron grip on the hen I'm holding. I'm the one in the pale blue trousers. I wasn't letting that go, but I think it just shows both of us have been very, very interested in kind of animals, the outdoors, and anything to do with farming from a very young age. And I guess my sister and I both knew we'd go back into something agricultural at some point, but I guess with many farms, and some of you might have experienced this, it's sometimes a case of when's the right time to come home. So growing up a little bit from this picture, I actually studied for my undergrad at the University of Cambridge in human, social and political sciences. And I really didn't think that somewhere which had such an academic emphasis was for me at all. And if my dad watches this later, he'll love it, because he was right to push me to go, because it was one of the best experiences that I had. I made loads and loads of connections. And I think one thing looking back, which was really important, is that I learned about and from people who weren't from a background, which was even rural, let alone agricultural. So after Cambridge, in a bid to return to something a bit more agricultural, I went to Siren and did my master's there in rural estate management. And you're probably thinking, that's not a well-trodden route from Cambridge to Siren, and you'd be right, it isn't. It was all a bit of a novelty. I remember thinking, goodness, we can go to the pub on an afternoon in the week. So it was, yeah, a complete change, but a really good change. But I mean, the problem with those pub afternoons, I remember, is kind of sneaking around the next morning. You might be a bit hungover, trying to avoid lecturers, and there was definitely one in particular who I definitely wanted to avoid, but I'm not going to name any names. But I can't emphasize enough, again, how important connections at Siren are. I've made friends for life, genuinely. And a lot of them have the kind of same goals and aims in life that I do. So after Siren, I got a job in surveying at McLaughlin, which is a firm, I guess, quite a few people linked with Siren might have heard of. I was there for about 18 months working in Bicester, and then I came back home and harvested over summer, and then worked at a poultry equipment supply firm as a project manager. And being away from uni, having jobs away from the farm definitely made me realise that coming home was a luxury, but also that I learned a lot being away from the farm. And I think if you can get away, it's really, really important to do that. You know, you get a bit of life experience, you learn what you like, and I guess also what you don't like. So yeah, I'd highly recommend that. But with this in mind, I've just said go away for a bit. I actually ended up coming back to the farm sooner than I thought. So unfortunately, my dad wasn't very well, a couple of hospitalizations, and it all culminated with him not being able to drive for 6 months. So this was a bit of a turning point in the farm, a bit of a kind of reality check. And this was going to clash with harvest. So we had quite a big problem if he couldn't drive. So either my sister or I were going to come back, or we'd have to get somebody, you know, outside the family to come and work on the farm. And we decided we wanted to keep it in the family if we could. My sister actually works at Bentham Auction Market, so that's on the Lancashire-Yorkshire border, so still involved in agriculture, but it wasn't feasible for her to come home. So I was the best option. And 26, I came back, a full-time farmer, my dream job. So as they say, every cloud, and thankfully my dad is quite well. So here is a picture of me back home, and actually just walking through just some oilseed rape. Absolutely loving that it's looking quite tall and healthy in that photo as well. But the farm's in North Yorkshire, we're mixed arable and sheep. And I've been really lucky to come back to a farm where my parents are keen to, you know, for me to be involved, to make changes, and they think really progressively. And I know this isn't always the case, so I am very lucky to be experiencing that. Farming's really experiencing a lot of challenges at the moment, and I think the only way to kind of weather the storm is with this progressive, adaptable approach, the willingness to change. And one of the things which is quite unique for us at home is that we're a trial farm for Hutchinson's, which is our agronomists. So that adds a real extra element of kind of technology and innovation, which, as I said, very lucky to have. And finally, couldn't have a picture without a lamb. On the livestock side, we actually haven't had sheep on the farm for about 10 years. So this was the first year we'd lambed at home for 10 years. And with the sheep, we're trying to mix really good breeding. So we've got, our star at the moment is a Beltex Tup, which is producing some really good lambs. We're lambing early. So our first lamb this season was on the 27th of December. And then we're just really trying to catch the right market and get the best prices. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's kind of me and kind of my journey in farming.
So I guess it's a bit about me now. So I can't believe that your first photo that you used was with chickens, and so is mine, although I am a lot older in this one than you were in yours. So in comparison to Becca, I'm not from a farming background at all. I think the most I learned about farming, I always joke about this with you, is that in primary school, I learned that a cow goes moo. And in secondary school, I learned that they are to blame for climate change and the environment, which, you know, of course, now being in the industry, I've learned so much more about. So I actually did my BA in English Language and Linguistics with Media at Sunderland Uni. And after I graduated, I fell into the industry. It just kind of happened. And I guess my heels just got stuck. So I started at a poultry equipment supply company as a marketing exec. So as you can see from the first picture, that was my first time in a poultry shed. And yes, I do look about 10 for anybody that's having a bit of a giggle there. But being in a shed with 32,000 hens, you know, they're all pecking my feet, and I do look a bit kind of awkward in that picture because I didn't really know what to do. It was mind-blowing to realize that, you know, a product that most people have in their households, like eggs, has so much behind it. There's innovation, there's technology, there's welfare, there's environmental standards. And that for me was like, whoa, there's a huge gap between the consumer and kind of the farming world. So I was working there and ended up doing my master's degree in design whilst working. And I guess I'll admit it that I, first of all, kind of took the job and thought, you know, I'll get some experience for the media side of things and see where life takes me. But I was just so hooked on the industry and the people behind our produce that I stayed there. So after a few years, I eventually became head of marketing and design. I was elected as women in on the Women in Ag Scotland committee, and I started writing all of these articles about people behind our food, which was really great to share stories and kind of break that stereotype. In 2021, after being at the poultry equipment supply company for a few years, Boots and Heels was born, and I was then suddenly immersed in the whole world of agriculture. So it wasn't just poultry, it was livestock, it was arable, it was machinery. And in July last year, I started at Farmers Weekly as a community editor, and I honestly haven't looked back since. So now I'm touring the country with my best friend and helping to bridge the gap between the public and their food. So as you can see there's a picture of me on graduation, and a picture of me with one of the lambs. I've just realised yours was the last lambing photo as well. So as some of you may have noticed, at one point we both worked at the same poultry equipment supplier. So that's how we met, and over many cuppers we found that we were asking lots and lots of questions to each other and learning. So questions we thought other people might have.
Definitely. And from these questions, we knew we wanted to do something to help answer them. We often say, you can't just Google questions about farming, but we were just really working on what was the most accessible way to kind of deliver this information. And so the idea of Boots and Heels started during the pandemic, and we felt that the opportunity was best satisfied through a podcast. We had, oh my gosh, endless name ideas and countless ideas of guests who we thought, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be amazing if we could get them on the podcast? And then Boots and Heels began out of all of these ideas. So the name was a literal reflection of our jobs. I, even in the poultry company, I was definitely more the boots. I was out on site a bit more, and Lizzie more the heels, spending time in the office. And I guess that's kind of stuck with our jobs now. But we also wanted it to kind of be a metaphor that whatever your background or shoe choice, you can still get into the industry.
Definitely. And when we first started, the aim of Boots and Heels was always to bridge the gap between farming and non-farming backgrounds. Just asking these questions between each other, we just saw this gap, and we wanted to connect people to British produce, and also show that career choices within the industry are endless, and they really aren't limited to people who've had farming in their blood for generations. So as you can see on screen, we've got some questions that we did ask each other. Excuse me. So I now know that a chock-ice cow is a belted Galloway or a belty, as I asked Becca, and cheese wheels are bales of silage.
And now I know that on Instagram, well, I know how to post. I mean, that's a great start. And I also know that an algorithm is the kind of system behind social media, which helps to drive good content to the right people. So we've all learned something.
Well done.
So people often think that Lizzie is the only one learning from me, obviously with the kind of farming topics. But I hadn't even listened to a podcast, let alone created one before Boots and Heels. So cue many of my questions to Lizzie about optimum duration, how to edit a podcast, how to get the best sound quality. So yeah, the questions genuinely were endless. But as I mentioned, we started recording during the pandemic. So again, cue Zoom, Teams, they were our best friends to enable us to speak to the guests that we were lucky enough to interview. And talking of sound quality, spent many an hour under my duvet. I've got really high ceilings. It's a farmhouse. The ceilings are really high. So trying to stop that echo, I mean, as I said, under a duvet or like cushions all around your head. But yeah, we did anything.
The amount of pictures of you with kind of like this just
a sneaky screenshot.
Yeah, it was hilarious. So yeah, moving on from that, after I secured a job at Farmers Weekly, they had already heard of Boots and Heels, which was really nice to hear. So from that, they did want to bring it in-house and acquired us. So we were really, really grateful for that support. And they've been amazing since. So yeah, we started as a podcast, and as time went on, we started to realize that like our audience was not just people in farming, but from kind of the public as well, in non-farming backgrounds. So as a result, we did decide to move to YouTube because we wanted to bring that kind of visual element. I think when you're listening to something that you don't fully understand because you're not from the industry, for instance, you do want to see that to understand it better. So to make our episodes more relatable and accessible, we moved platforms. So for the final episode of series 2, we tested this kind of YouTube idea with YouTube sensation Tom Pemberton, which was really fun. You saw us get hands-on on the farm.
Well, you especially.
Yeah, I was in a skirt, which was interesting. And yeah, we then fully committed for series 3 to do a YouTube series. So hopefully some of you will recognize some of the farming faces and names that we've got here. It's always been and will continue to be a priority for us to speak with people who are really shining a positive light on our industry. So it's not necessarily always famous faces, but we are honest about the fact that those guests do help us to kind of reach further. So if they've been on, you know, a good social media presence, or if they've been on television, for example, they really do help us to get the message out there. So topics we've covered are really diverse, aren't they? They aim to appeal to kind of our different demographics. So we've touched on different sectors within farming, lots of things in the countryside, and some really interesting diversifications. But we've also touched on important and sometimes difficult topics to kind of discuss, such as mental health, and that's been almost an underlying theme.
Definitely. We've also had, well, to add a bit of a competitive element, some Team Boots versus Team Heels challenges. So we've done some kind of sheepdog training, beekeeping, and Lizzie has even milked her first cow.
I have.
So there's something for everyone in the episodes. But where has the UK tour taken us? Quite literally all corners of the country. Somerset, Lancashire, Scotland, Yorkshire, Wales, and we've got so many more visits planned as well through the coming year. But one thing which we really like to emphasize in our episodes, and I guess location plays a massive part in this, is that no farm is the same. As I said, location, system, size, or sector, but all the farmers that we visit are really focused on animal welfare, you know, the environment, but we also can't forget financial viability as well. Sometimes it's almost, you know, it's the unspoken word that farmers are business owners as well, but we really like to include that element as well where we can.
So
yeah, well, what a year. It's cliched to say that you never know where you're going to end up, but we genuinely, I mean, we could have never have guessed the reach that we've had. And I think that's the main thing. It's the reach that we're after, because that means, you know, the message is getting out there.
Yeah, I think it's hard to believe that a year ago, like we started, and since then we've charted in Apple's top 200 for personal journals at number 25, which is crazy. We were acquired by Farmers Weekly. We've featured on ITV Tyne Tees, BBC Look North, ITV Calendar, and we've even been live on like radio stations, which was something new because we're so used to kind of recording beforehand.
Yeah, you can't edit. Editing.
You can't edit live. So that has been really interesting and something new for us. So we're really lucky to kind of be on these platforms and channels to get the message of agriculture out there. We've reached over 100,000 collected YouTube views, which is increasing pretty much every episode. More people are hearing about us, which is amazing and something we really never expected. We always said if we can reach one person and make a difference, then we've done something right. So to reach that many people has been phenomenal. Yeah. We've been seen in the Yorkshire Post, Student Farmer, and other publications, which has been great. And we've also secured our first sponsor, so A-Plan Rural, which we can't thank them enough for, because, you know, without them we couldn't make it work. We still have complete control of our content and what we put out there. That's a huge thing for us. We never want to give that up because it's, you know, it's still just us two. But it's really nice to kind of have the support from companies and businesses who align themselves with us.
Definitely. So I guess the question is, how did we do all of these things? And, it's all well and good us talking about kind of ourselves, but almost, is there anything that, any messages that we can pass on to anyone listening as well, of how we got there?
Yeah, it's not been necessarily easy, has it? It's had its challenges, but main things that we learned, a huge thing that we stand by is we set our aims high. I think if you set a target that you want to achieve and kind of work your way backwards to how you're going to get there, I think the sky's your limit. There's always times when I go, oh, should we maybe try that, or should we reach out to that guest? And the amount of times we think that's never going to happen, and it does. And we always say to each other is, if you don't ask, you don't get. And we just sometimes shoot our shot.
Yeah, for sure.
I need to stop doing that, don't I? So another one that we stand by is take every opportunity. So, you will find that if you're putting yourselves out there, a lot of people might want to kind of do something with you, collaborate. And it's really important to kind of take the opportunities that are given to you. So I know that Becca's now an NFU Young Farmer Ambassador. I'm now a Yellow Wellies mental health ambassador, and just kind of reaching out and taking opportunities is a huge thing.
So another one, push yourself out of your comfort zone. This is a big one for us, and I think it really sums up boots and heels. And sometimes you have to put the other shoe on.
Yeah.
Lizzie obviously has to get on farm, and to be fair, there's sometimes when that would have been quite a difficult experience, it's something that you've never done before, and there's things that I've done as well. We were involved in York Fashion Week for a country to city kind of kind of change up an event. Well, I had to get in my heels and get all dressed up. So sometimes some of these things, actually, you just have to go for it.
Yeah.
And you'll feel amazing once you've done it. And also people find it more relatable, because there will be times when the person who is the heels does have to get out on farm, and vice versa. So it's a really, really important one just to go for it, really.
And you can learn a lot by doing that.
Definitely. Yeah, don't be afraid to get it wrong. So there's plenty of times when particularly when you're on camera and, you feel like there could be a lot of people watching, you can be tentative, but actually the way we've got better is by getting it wrong. So even down to simple things such as getting your sound quality right, or how much of us do we want in shot with the guest, or, which shots work and which content works. And it's really important to just try it. And if it doesn't work, well, that's all right. You've learned for next time. You'll get it a bit better next time. So that's so important.
Definitely. It's even things like guests, you might see on the forefront that we've got these fantastic guests, but there are some guests that we still haven't got that we might like to. So, just don't be afraid to kind of make mistakes, really. Definitely. And a huge one that we live by is no question is a stupid question. So whether that's me asking Becca about something about farming that I would never have known, or Becca asked me something about kind of social media or the kind of marketing side of things, or whether it's a question on farm or in general, something we see online, no question's a stupid question. Keep learning, because
it's not ignorance.
No,
that's the main thing. It's not ignorance.
Exactly. Again, I'm going to have to stop doing that.
So we have also faced quite a few challenges, and I think this is the case for anything you want to do. You're trying something new, you're trying to develop an idea. So work balance is something which has genuinely been really tricky for us. Obviously, I work on the farm at home, and I'm very lucky. My parents are very flexible, but there's definitely times when I have done more things for boots and heels in a week than on the farm. And it's really hard to juggle those sometimes. And particularly when obviously you get the seasonal kind of busy times, it's tricky. And, obviously Lizzie the same, she might be in an office, but there's still massive demands on her time. So I think that's something which I would say we've struggled with, but we're coming out the other side of appreciating when each other's busy times are, kind of when not to bother each other, when filming works, when it doesn't work. And yet you just have to work at that balance. As we mentioned, take every opportunity in the last slide. However, not every opportunity is right for us. Now, this might be because we just have too much on in that time scale to do that opportunity justice. And we would never want to do something where we did half a job.
Yeah.
But there's also a case of some people might approach us to want to come on an episode or whatever. And sometimes their values and maybe their aims or what they're doing with their business just don't quite align with what we want to push and that message. And it really is okay to say no to those people or those opportunities. So that has been tricky, but
definitely it's a difficult thing sometimes to, you know, especially if you want to kind of take every single opportunity or like please everybody or make everybody happy. Sometimes you've just got to take a step back and look after yourself as well. So it is okay to say no. So another challenge that we faced is comparison on social media. So it's so easy to kind of see a lot of these farming influences or just influencers in general. You know, it's a commonplace now on social media, and it's so easy to kind of get sucked into seeing everybody else's highlight reels. You know, everybody's putting, well, the majority of people are putting kind of their best bits about life on social media. So it's very easy to compare that to maybe something you're struggling with or a challenge or thinking you're not good enough. And I think it's really important to remember that we're all working towards a common goal. We all want to highlight the best of British agriculture, and you can only do your best. So healthy competition can be really good to drive you forward, but not if it means you forget why you started or it makes you feel bad about yourself. You know, you can only do your best. And negative comments we've got as well. We've had that. I think when you put yourself out online, you're always going to have some comments that, you know, can upset you or hurt you. And you'll often find that you could get 100 good messages, but you'll fixate on that negative comment. So we've had comments where it's, you know, Becca's been wearing rings after like a day out, and it's like, you can't look like a farmer. Or I've had comments of, what exactly do you do in ag if you haven't got a farm? And I think it's very easy to get wrapped up in that. If people compare us, it's very easy to kind of take that to heart. But actually, if you can kind of take those negative comments and remember that, you know, it's just somebody else on the other end of the screen. We send the messages to each other, we brush them off, we laugh them off, and we actually try and remember all the good positive things. So yeah, I think it's really important to kind of remember that. And fear of failure. So I think somewhere in us, we're all afraid to fail. We're all afraid to get it wrong, and it's so ingrained in us to see perfect lives of others and see successes and see everybody doing really well that maybe we forget about their failures. We've had times where we've been afraid to not reach our targets. We haven't had as many views as we'd like, or we've been afraid to not get the message out there. But actually, if you use that fear and that kind of that feeling to drive you forward and help you succeed, it can be a game changer.
Definitely. So who would have thought that I would be giving you tips on social media? But I feel like that just sums up Boots and Heels. So the first tip we would give you is to know your audience, particularly across the different social media platforms. There's a lot of different kind of age demographics, gender demographics, and you know, background demographics as well across the platform. So sometimes you will have to tailor content depending on which platform it's going on.
Can I just say that I absolutely love that photo of you, like the Lion King holding that light up. You look fab.
I look scared. I don't want to drop that really expensive light, I think.
True. So another tip we would suggest is post regular engaging content. So we touched on this idea of algorithms earlier. So changing algorithms, you know, Facebook, Instagram, they're always changing. It means that what's classed as kind of good content is always pushed to the forefront to your followers or people who engage with you. So you want to ensure that when you're posting something, you're putting something that's not only relevant, but will sit with your audience. So, you know, goes with kind of what you stand for. And it's really, really important to do that, because if you don't, kind of the algorithms push your content to the back. So I think that's a really good tip if you're kind of new to socials or you're wanting to learn more about social media.
Something which has been, well, worked actually really well for us is branching out. So we started a Boots and Heels TikTok, and that's pushed some of our views, and sometimes it's only on kind of shorter clips, but again, we're tailoring the content to the platform. TikTok is shorter video clips, so it's not, you know, a half an hour YouTube episode. It can just be a minute long. And so we've got some really, really good views on really important snapshots, really important points that we want to get across quickly. So yeah, definitely, if it's a new platform, just give it a go. And as we said before, if you make a mistake, it doesn't matter.
I mean, TikTok's taken over the social media sphere at the minute. So if you're not on it, highly recommend it. Another tip, interact with your followers. So it might sound really simple, but actually, you know, you want to be commenting on other people's posts. You want to be liking, you want to be sharing their content. And it's very easy to think, oh, I don't want to share somebody else's because they might do better. But actually, no, we want to be kind of interacting. You want to be seen as a real person, not just, you know, some screen that you're interacting with or a picture. So yeah, that's a huge thing. And a final tip would be yourself. So there is a huge need at the minute for, especially the next generation, for this idea of authenticity. So if your content's staged or, you know, it doesn't really reflect you, people are going to see through it. People now are wanting more real people. We live in a world of filters. We live in a world of Photoshop and edits, but kind of the next generation that are coming up, they're really interested in kind of stripping that back and going back to the real people. So yeah, show genuine passion, be honest, and be yourself, and your reach will grow.
So we've got big plans, but what's next in kind of, you know, the kind of next year or so? We're going to be finishing season 3 and starting season 4. So that's continuing with the UK tour. As we said before, visiting lots of like interesting farmers, diversifications, you know, you name it, we'll probably be visiting it, and I'd say some surprising ones coming up as well.
Oh, let's see what more challenges we'll be doing. I mean, I'm winning at the minute with the boots versus heels. Can I just say that? So maybe Becca will have a chance to catch up. So NFU Farmers for Schools program. So Becca and I have both got involved with the NFU's program for education. So we've just done our training, which has been fantastic, and we're hoping to go into schools to talk to children and show them that agriculture's for everybody, whether it's just educating them on where the food's coming from, or showing that actually there are so many different careers. You know, you can be in an office, you can do design, you can be creative, but you can also be on the farm and get hands-on as well. So really excited for that.
We've got some further speaking events this year as well, so can't give too much away. Some of them haven't been formally announced yet, but you know, for example, Women in Ag events, to business shows, to New Scientists Live, to then even, you know, something like a Breed Society dinner. So it's a real variety, but we just see all these events as massive opportunities to speak to different people and, you know, get their perspective on the industry. And yeah, so massive opportunities for us.
And we always want to talk to people. So any chance that you get to come and say hello, we want to say hi. So yeah,
definitely.
So we're also really lucky to be presenters at Farmers Weekly's Britain's Fittest Farmer this year. So if you don't know what that is, it's a fantastic event where lots of people in the agricultural industry come together to compete for the trophy and for £1,000 cash prize. So it's not just about physical fitness, it's mental well-being as well. And it's just a real great day. So you know, whether you're competing or you're just a spectator, it's so good to get involved. We're going to be there, we're going to be asking questions, we're going to be talking to everybody, and maybe we'll have a bit of a challenge for you guys to try. We always do, don't we? So yeah, really excited to be presenting that. I just think that's going to be fab.
We've also, I feel like it's a bit of a goal of people who, you know, start their own kind of ideas and businesses to get merchandise. So we have our very own Boots and Heels hats, and well, these are available at shows and events throughout the year, but we're hoping to branch out into more ideas and yeah.
So if there's anything you want to see, let us know.
For sure. But that brings us to the end of our talk. We just want to say thank you so much for joining us, whether that's live this evening or on YouTube later as well. If you want to keep up to date with what we're doing, what episodes are coming out, you can follow us at Boots and Heels UK. And yeah, now we'd like any questions if there are any.
So I think we stopped sharing our screen now, don't we?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. It's actually really great to see. We've for those who don't follow it already, we've just started our own alumni Instagram page, and it's really interesting to see. And I've taken your tips on board. I've been writing down, but Hannah and I won't be doing any challenges. I think neither of us will be doing any sheep wrestling or anything. But yeah, no, we've had a number of questions sent through the other day via our Instagram. Actually, like I said, a mixture of both, of sort of agricultural questions. But we'll end with that sort of heavier one, which is a bit of good fun. But the sort of the first
I feel
one.
like that's coming my way.
No, don't worry. No, it's not. Don't worry. So mixture, actually, first one actually for Lizzie is I know you briefly did touch upon it in your presentation, but sort of what would you say the most surprising and sort of eye-opening thing for you that you saw in agriculture was? The first thing that really made you go, wow, I didn't know that was the case.
Oh my gosh. Thinking right back, it was, if I'm honest, it was the stereotype of what it means to be a farmer. So when I was growing up, I was surrounded by children's books that had kind of the older man in the field with his flat cap and little straw and you know, sorting his sheep or cows. And it's quite ingrained in people outside of the industry, which is obviously not true. When I came into the industry and I saw all these diverse people in different ages, and women in ag was a huge thing for me that I could get involved with to kind of promote. So that was a huge kind of, oh my gosh, what, like, how is this even possible? We should be educating more on this. So yeah, that was a huge myth that I faced.
Yeah, I think you're very right. The days of the farmer in the field going ooh ah, like one of the Wurzels is very much gone. Sort of Becca, one actually from one of my colleagues in the recruitment office at the RAU. It's the very typical, why Cirencester? Why did you choose, from sort of studying from the University of Cambridge, why did you then turn to the Cambridgeshire of the countryside in Cirencester?
Good question. I mean, the first thing is I just wanted another year of not having to go into the real world, but it was just a case of where. So the thing about, I did want to get back to something agricultural, and obviously there are other agricultural places to study, but we won't mention those. But the thing about Ciren is that, one, it's just a beautiful place. The Cotswolds really draws you in. But also I feel like the network from Ciren is genuinely second to none. And it kind of, Ciren, going to Ciren will give you a leg up definitely into some of the associated industries, which for me, obviously, when you're looking to a career, not necessarily as a farmer, as I said, I didn't plan to go back to the farm as early as I did. When I wanted to build a career in the industry, contacts you make at somewhere like Ciren were definitely a big consideration. Plus, you know, there's a bit of work that goes on as well, so you have to do that. But yeah.
And I can reassure anybody who is listening, Cirencester is the real world. Don't worry. Sort of from that, we'll have a number of students who are, a lot of students at the moment from first to third year actually finishing their final assignments for the year. And a dissertation hand-in is actually as we speak, so yesterday and today as well. So a lot of students will be rewatching this at a later date as well. Sort of for you both, if you could, what would be sort of the best advice for a new entrant into agriculture, and also somebody going back to the family farm? In just sort of one sentence, what would you sort of say?
If you're going back to the family farm, obviously very easy for me to say, as I've mentioned, my family are very willing to adapt, but don't be afraid to go back with an idea, but research your idea, maybe find someone else who's implemented that on farm and it's worked, and take back almost a proven idea to say, look, can we change the farm in this way? Because farms do have to change. It's very hard to do it, but do your research and take back a good proven idea.
Oh, that was good.
There we are. Do you and Lizzie, what about yourself?
I'd say be open-minded and ask lots of questions. Really simple, but so valuable. I think you can go in with an idea of what you want to do in life. It's very easy to finish university and be like, this is what I want to do. Or sometimes you don't even know what you want to do and you feel like you're falling off a cliff because it's just finished, because you've been studying for so long. But be open-minded, ask lots of questions, and trust that you'll find where you need to be.
There we are. And obviously, as you might be aware, we have 45 different countries that were representations of different countries at the RAU. Sort of from that, have you ever, either of yourselves, sort of been tempted to either go into agriculture overseas? And if you were, where would you go? Would it be Southern Hemisphere, or would it be to, go in a vineyard in France? What would it be?
Oh, I was saying vineyard in France sounds amazing.
All right, okay, maybe that's not the best example. But
not much work getting done there. I think that's a really good question. I always thought I'd go away somewhere and work. In my head, it was kind of more cattle station kind of work. But the thing with going to Cambridge is that it didn't almost seem like there was time. It just felt very much like I should be going straight into the academic side of it. And I would say genuinely that if there's one thing I wish I had done to date, it would have been to go and work somewhere, as I said, probably on a cattle station, because we do some sheep, we do some arable. Cattle's quite new to me. For me, that will be the most challenging part. But that is one thing which I haven't done, and I know there's still time, but I wish I'd done it. So yeah, probably even somewhere like America. I know a lot of people in New Zealand, Australia, but a station in America, I think I'd love to do.
Oh, well, that's just given me an idea. We should go Boots and Heels International.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That sounds like quite an expensive trip, doesn't it?
Oh, we could do it. We could go around Europe. We could do maybe like America, the USA. So if anybody's watching and they want to invite us out there, like, you never know. But yeah, I think that's what I'd like to do, because I'd like to see the differences and look at kind of different innovations and different ideas and just get hands-on. That's what we're doing at the minute, just being hands-on at different farms in the UK. So.
Yeah, brilliant. I think that sort of, like you sort of said, the network at the RAU, it does bring that. So, don't be surprised if you do get an email or an Instagram message saying, I farm in, Zimbabwe, or I farm in New Zealand. We have, alumni all over the world, and sort of.
Well, our inbox is always open.
And sort of touching back onto the Boots and Heels sort of podcast. You've had everybody from sort of the Welsh rugby extraordinaire referee Nigel Owens to also, like you said earlier, you had Tom Pemberton, who's actually an alumnus of the university as well. To you both, sort of, and you don't answer at the same time, but just wondering who's been your favourite, not just like the most interesting, but just the most sort of fun podcast to film and sort of YouTube series to film, and why?
Oh gosh. Well, we obviously love all of our guests. Everybody's different. We pick and kind of go to different farms for different reasons. Oh gosh. I'm gonna say I absolutely loved Sophie Gregory, because I got to milk a dairy cow by hand, which I have always wanted to do. And she just made everything so comfortable, and I had the best time. But I also loved visiting Tom Pemberton because, well, he gave us the confidence to kickstart a YouTube channel. So that was just kind of like a real inspiration, wasn't it?
Definitely. It is difficult to choose, and everybody says, I can't pick one, but it really is difficult to choose. But I absolutely loved going up to Emma Gray. So I mean, Isle of Bute, amazing. I've never been on a ferry before.
You were
so
excited.
Ridiculous.
You were like, I can't believe I'm on a ferry.
It was. I mean, tell me from Yorkshire, and you've hardly ever left Yorkshire. But she was absolutely amazing. It was a completely different way of living. So many considerations being. It wasn't as isolated as I thought, but so many considerations living on an island, and their obviously system is completely different to how we run ours at home. So being able to compare, and that's one thing that I don't think we maybe mentioned. I love going to other places to see, can I bring an idea back home?
Yeah.
So yeah, she was great. Obviously everything she's doing with the sheepdogs as well, and her and Ewan is, yeah, they're amazing. So they would probably be my favorite guests.
Okay, perfect. And sort of just the last question for me is actually, you started the podcast and the YouTube series during the lockdowns. and sort of trends throughout since the lockdowns. Consumer awareness of where the food comes from has skyrocketed, and sort of from that, the agricultural world and the land-based world itself is changing regularly, with challenges hitting us from every direction. And we're trying to produce graduates to make sure they're ready for a world they don't know what's going to be like. And sort of from that, if you can just sort of be interested to see what your thoughts about this is, both seeing agriculture from the marketing side, but also from the hands-on sort of side as well. What would you say the next challenges for British agriculture would be? And I'm not going to quote you and say to Farmers Weekly, this is what these guys have said, but what would you, in your sort of own sort of thoughts, would it be?
I personally think food security, and I don't think it has been reported on widely enough yet. It's going to be absolutely chaotic. It's already started. I see so much on social media of there's a drought in this country, this crop's failed in this country, and what I think it's all all well and good thinking, do you know what, if British farmers aren't going to produce it or can't financially afford to produce it, we'll import it. And we are a global economy, but what happens when those places we import it from are having exactly the same issues as us? So I think food security is massive, and there's a place for everything to do with the environment, but we can do both. We can look after and farmers have been doing that for ages. So I think there needs to be more awareness of food security and how we can produce food and look after the environment all in a sustainable way, in a nutshell. But I could talk about that for the next 2 years, so I'll stop there.
Oh gosh, from my side, I think a huge kind of challenge that's coming up at the minute is mental health. I think we're doing a lot better kind of talking about it and opening up, but I do think that's still a challenge. As Becca said, there's financial aspects, but there's also this kind of target to net zero that we're all going to have to face. But I don't know, I want to spin it on a positive, and I think actually there's a real kind of exciting opportunity with the next generation who are really eager to kind of take on change and are really excited to make a difference and an impact. So with all of these challenges and kind of different things that everybody's facing, actually, I think, well, hopefully we've got the next kind of line of people ready to take it on.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think both very pertinent answers, and especially as agriculture has one of the highest levels of suicide, and it's one of the most dangerous industries sort of in the UK by some fair way. Definitely. I know sort of at the university, that's something that we do push. We're trying to teach students, everything from RAU to agriculture to whatever. But it's also about making a well-rounded, not just professional, but an individual from that as well. So it is, being ready for, the days when you do have to question yourself. And sort of just to wrap up, just to say a huge thank you to you both. It is really fantastic to see, such a success story. And it's quite interesting to see that you weren't expecting it, but we're very much looking forward to seeing what's next for you both. And we'll be definitely shouting from the sidelines. And we definitely will be very much looking forward to you and to welcome you back to the university, and whether it's in this series or the next. You can do a few challenges, whether it's see who can pull the most pints or who can do a dissertation the fastest.
Well, I'd love to come and visit, because I've never been. So
we'll have to sort that out. Don't worry. And we'll look forward to having some lovely boots and heels hats as well, ready for the winter. I don't know very good hats anyway, but thank you to all those who have come to watch it tonight, but also a big thank you to those who are watching on YouTube as well. To those who are students or potential future students as well at the RAU. I know this will be sort of sent to you guys as well. And if you don't follow Becca and Lizzie already, just what's your handle's just Boots and Heels on Instagram, isn't it? And is it similar on TikTok as well? Perfect. Well, please do make sure that you give them a follow to make sure that you keep up to date and see who wins the next challenge. But again, thank you very much all for joining. And we'll see you again very soon. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.